Hi there. Well, it's future me again, and in this video you're going to see me starting to work on this, which is a zip drive for the MyIDE interface I put in my 130xe in a video not too long ago. This should be a couple of weeks after I release that video. And anyways, the reason I'm doing this is I've decided to split the video into at least 3 parts because it's, well, just so flaming long, and I'm describing what I'm doing through most of it, so you won't see too much of a fast forward, just one little part near the end. Anyways, so you'll see at least 2 Doctor Who level cliffhangers, and after that, who knows? There may be an extra part depending on how much material I put in each episode. So, like you always, on with the show. Okay. From all the junk that's in front of me, I think you can guess what I'm working on right now, which is getting the zip drive into this case for use with my 130xe, which you would have seen in the previous video. Of course, I'll be passing this cable and through the back of the case, and I'll have to cut a slot for that to the computer, of course. And I think I am getting extension for that as well, which I may or may not need, but I've got it. Well, I've got it coming anyways, so I probably will use it. And of course, I got a clear case big enough, which hopefully you can see that. These corners, I got it this large so I could fit the zip drive in there without these corners interfering, and have plenty of room inside. And in fact, I will put a power LED in as well, which I haven't got out yet. I haven't decided if I'll put it inside the case and let it show through the top, or I'll probably just drill a hole in the front here somewhere and mount that in so I can have it showing at the front, which is and of course there's always one thing that I can't find when I get sitting down to use it, which is my friendly neighborhood Phillips screwdrivers. And I always have these things sitting out because I use them a lot. I also have that flathead screwdriver, which I mistakenly pulled out, but even though I don't use that nearly so much. Having grown up as a little kid in the 70s, pretty much everything was those flathead screws, which I didn't think about so much back then, but when things started going to these Phillips head screws into the 80s at some point, they got a whole lot easier, which if you've ever used one, you know why. The thing about this is it does have some extra screws inside the case, which should double check to make sure those are the same size. They look to be the same size, so. 'Cause you know what happens if you worked on stuff like that. Whoops. You'll be putting everything together, just about finished. One of the screws will slip through your fingers, hit the ground and roll away, and you never find it until 6 months later. And that's after running around to every hardware store in the city, trying to find one that's the same length, diameter, thread pattern, and when you finally find one, it's a Robertson head because it's a screwdriver, and they just sell to contractors and people doing home repairs. I'm going to take a look at this here. Yep. Those are the same diameter, so they are spares, which is kind of a cool thing. And something I'll probably do is I've got some gray paint I can and this will probably have to scuff up the outside so it'll adhere. On the inside I'll probably put on some of that nickel impregnated or nickel plating RF shielding paint, which I put on the top of my XE case here because I can't put the existing RF shield in there again without cutting it up massively. So I use some of this, which I'll attach to the shielding on the bottom side of the XE later on. And of course, it's got all these mounting holes in here as well, which I probably won't use, and it's got this little stretchy, rubbery, string-like substance, which I don't know why that's in there, but anyways, what I'll probably be doing is drilling, after a ton of measuring, I'll be cutting a hole in the front here to fit the zip drive, and I'll have to do a ton of measuring because what I'm going to do is I've got some of these 440 screws which seem to fit, although I may have to either put some washers or a nut on those, or maybe grind them down a bit, which will be a flaming nuisance, so they can still have them fit in the drive. I'll just go through my big box of screws on the shelf behind you, which will be actually what I'm going to do is I'll get this little baggie here from my momentary switch, which I'll put in there temporarily. I'll get all these screws in here so I don't lose any of them, and keep those spares as spares. So I can use them for something else probably much later on. And I'll just leave that on the top of the case. And yeah, okay. What I'll do is I'll get these all in here because I can hopefully use them for lining up the positioning inside the case, which I'll first use to, now where is that? Actually, these may fit. Yeah. I'll get these in here. Now, why I'm probably asking why I'd be putting these all the way in. Well, it's just so I can keep them in there temporarily, I know, because I can use these for lining up with here, and hopefully I have to put some paint on the end of those screws so they can mark the inside of the case, so I can line up the height to cut the hole for, because I don't want to pay the 20 something or 30 bucks to buy another one of these after having it get all messed up. And of course on the back here, I'll probably start with this tonight and get the holes lined up for the rocker switch and the socket, and I'll also be putting in a 7805 regulator, which I will be, should probably start doing that in a couple of minutes too. Get some thermal compound on that and use that regulator, because what I'm going to do is, I got a bunch of old Casio keyboard power adapters, which are 9 volts, but they use a non-standard plug here, which is a non-standard inner diameter, which I'll replace with this one, which is the usual 2.5 millimeter, and reuse it, and that'll just, of course, regulator will bring it down to 5 volts to power this. And hopefully this will show up, but right there you'll notice the power ratings plus 5 volts at 0.8 amps. So basically I'll just be trimming off this section of this old cable. Oh, yeah, this section, using this to connect up to here, and only connecting up the red and one of the black connectors, which this uses, and not the other ground with the yellow, which is 12 volts, which I don't use. So anyways, I will be, let's see, just going to make a measurement on these. 11.3 mil, or well, 11.4 millimeters by 'Sure I get the flat side and not these locking tabs. 18.2. And I'll go make a note of that on the computer, so gotta remember to trim that there out of the video. Okay, and this is it. I gotta make sure I get the threads, not the back section of the, yeah, so 12.2 millimeters. Okay. Of course, here's my XE, 130 XE, which I still have to get together. Right there's where that ribbon cable is going to plug in and go out through the case, just over the cartridge and ECA ports there, so. I've already got the notch in the case for that So they'll go together as I'm getting this together. I just noticed, hopefully you can see that, but that little screw there, that one little mounting tab for that screw is slightly askew. Let's see this here. Hopefully that shows up, but yeah, on the left side here it's slightly askew. Hopefully I can keep that. Let's see if, hopefully I can. Get my pliers on that just enough. Yeah, I think I can get that okay. So, otherwise, use this particular bit here because I forgot to get my cordless drill out and charge it up last night, so that ain't going to be working tonight. So and then to get that right in here, I know there's 4 sides of collets for these Dremels, or at least that I know of. And the funny thing is, the one that's in there is the one I'm using like 98% of the time. And when I didn't have all 4 of them, there was always something there's always something I needed that used one of the other sizes. So, yeah, I will start on my, just getting this nut off of here so I can pass it in through the back when I get the hole cut the size. And I'm not going to measure that out exactly because I can, just as long as I'm in between these 2 tabs here, I can cut it out. Yeah. So I'll put you on mute for this. Maybe put in some of that YouTube music again, so you don't have to hear this. this out of the way. So, yeah. Any perfect? Okay. It's a little bit later and still working on the case for the zip drive here. And last time I was just getting the whole deal for this, and this power socket went and fell on the floor like a couple of minutes after I just was mentioning stuff like that happening. So anyways, it was the next day when I finally was able to find where it rolled away to. So my next step is I'm going to mark off a hole for this rocker switch, which will be for the power. And of course the driver will be at this other end here. And at some point after, the next step after will be to make a narrow opening for the ribbon cable to pass through. But one thing at a time. So of course I'll have to mark off where I'm going to drill on the bottom of the case for the drive to be mounted as well. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to mark, whether I'm going to put the power LED inside for the transparent top, shine through the top, or to mount it on what will be the front, where it's more readily visible. Anyways, I gotta measure this thing again because I went and forgot. Okay, 11.5 wide. And again, I don't want to. This is going to be tricky to do with the Dremel too, because of course it's thoroughly rectangular, and also I want to make sure that it not only does it get into the opening, but it's not too big, so that it doesn't fall out. It's not all showing. Okay, 19.1 millimeters. Okay, so and let's see if I can find where. My metal ruler. Yeah, it's a bit more rigid, so put a mark on the top where this I don't want to make sure that it doesn't drill into there, because and I want to go down a little bit too, so that it's isn't, the cable for the coming out from the drive won't be hitting the switch. So closer look at this. Okay, yes. There. So that should be about 19 millimeters. And let's see what I have, 11.5. And I'm going to cut from the outer edge, or cut the hole at the outer edge of the line, so in case this marker doesn't wipe off this plastic, then it won't be visible beyond the switch there. That's a bit. Should be that should give me, let's see, 19.3. I measured this a little bit smaller, but that's okay. As long as it's not too big, I can, as long as it's not too big, I can, there's a really fine bit here. And, okay, this is one of those few times, this particular bit, where I've got to use a smaller collet. And of course, I've got to get this thing plugged in again. I always keep that Dremel unplugged when I'm not using it, so. notice I had my arm on that case to hold it down while drilling inwards. That's a bit risky, so I had to take a lot of extra caution with that, because I don't really have any clamp, or at least not the proper kind of clamps to hold it down to the table, or I don't have any kind of a table vise or anything, so I'll have to just be extra careful.